Hello, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be discussing another great use that I've found for AI. Here I'm contemplating a scenario in which you're an attorney preparing for trial or a deposition. And across the table from you is going to be an expert in a field that you might know nothing about, molecular biology or nanoparticles, whatever. And so this could be a very daunting thing. Maybe it would encourage you to stray away from this, try to avoid this, or spend too much time preparing. And so here I think I've developed or found a method of preparing for these sorts of scenarios much more efficiently. And part of it is going to be pre-learning. And so if I'm going to be across the table from some sort of expert in a field who has a lot of publications, well, of course, I think I'm going to want to read some of those, or if not most of them, get a good understanding of their work, their methods, things like that, and their positions. But that might be kind of daunting to go into it completely unaware of what to expect with no background. And so this is the solution. It is called Notebook LM. And so I'm going to be taking on what I think is a complicated topic today, and I'm going to show you how I think, maybe this will illustrate what I'm seeing as a potential fix or way to address these scenarios. All right, so with that being said, let me go ahead and share my screen. We're going to share this one. Okay. Is everything looking good? All right, so here, the topic we're going to be exploring, this is Dr. Mobeen Syed. I think he has really great videos. My favorite thing about Dr. Mobeen Syed is in any of the things, his lectures, he always has his sources below. So here he has, the study he's actually discussing, which is from the Lancet. It's a study with over 30 million participants. Very, very cool. So that's a high quality study. The Lancet is one of the oldest medical journals in the world. All right, and so here's the actual study itself, and I've already gone ahead and downloaded it. And here's another video. Oh, and the topic we're looking at is factors driving the risk of severe COVID in boosted individuals. So contrary to what we might expect, there's some studies going on that might suggest that after boosting, after vaccination, there actually could sometimes, in some situations, be a higher risk for infection. And so what is going on there? That sounds pretty complicated. And having already looked into this a little bit, it starts talking about IgG1, IgG4, and these are related to our body's immune system responses, and it's really complicated. So yeah, that's one of the first videos. Another video lecture he has that I think is similarly related is the third Pfizer vaccine shot increases non-inflammatory IgG4. So that again is related to our immune responses. And here again, I love this. He has primary sources here, except for maybe the Wikipedia. We don't like Wikipedia, right? That's how we are raised in America. We do not like Wikipedia. All right. So this study's great. I left out the affinity versus avidity. I didn't want it to be too distracting. I don't think that's necessarily the focus here based on what I know. I think it's useful information, but I don't want to confuse my AI model that I'm sort of creating or fine tuning. I want to throw in all this information, and I don't want any background noise kind of getting too much emphasis placed on it by the AI and wasting my time. So I'm going to leave that study out or that website, and it's not that interesting anyways. But yeah, and so here's that study. Here's the Wikipedia page. Again, we're not supposed to trust Wikipedia, but I think on a subject as dry as this, we aren't really worried about the typical concerns when it comes to Wikipedia, being like, some goofballs coming in changing things or whatever. This is a pretty dry thing, so I'm confident in using it. Here's another thing going with it is this other study. And so this is about the class switch, how IgG4 is taking precedent over, I think this is about IgG4 taking precedent over IgG1 in long term. But yeah. All right. So let me go ahead and show you the process of using Notebook LM. So I have all these complicated things I want to know more about. I'm going to create a new notebook. And let's go ahead, before we start uploading sources, we're going to title this, you know, uh, a YouTube video, but also IgG4, whatever, something like that, or Mobeen, Dr. Mobeen Syed. All right, cool. Now let's go ahead and start adding these. So I've already downloaded the study from the Lancet and the other one I showed. Um, so there's the first one. Upload another one. Here's the severe COVID with the 30 million individuals from the Lancet. Let's go ahead and find another one. I think that was it for studies I needed to download. And another really cool thing is I've got the Wikipedia article. Now I could download this as a PDF like this, go to print, save as a PDF, but I actually don't need to do that because one of the beauties of Notebook LM is this right here. I can just copy the link, go back, and I can tell it, hey, I'm going to give you a website. That's cool, cool, give me the website. Boom, there you go. Now that is also included. We already got the Lancet, we got that. Oh, the YouTube videos. So these YouTube videos have a transcript. Let me see if I can pull that up. Show transcript. And so what the AI is going to do is it's going to come here after I give it the link and it's going to pull out this entire transcript. And I love these timestamps because that's probably going to come in later. I'll be able to show you where when you're reading things that the AI tells you, if you're ever curious, concerned, whatever, there's typically a citation at the end of its claims, a little footnote. You click on it and it will tell you what source out of all the sources you've given the LM, it will tell you which one it got it from and where. And so I think that is super useful, especially as an attorney when we owe a duty to our clients to make sure, the AI, when we are using it, that it is vetted. We vetted it, we verified it, it's not hallucinating. Yeah, so really helpful in that sense. All right, what was I doing again? Oh yeah, I'm getting the link for the YouTube video. So we're getting the second one first. I tell it this is going to be a YouTube one. It says cool. All right, let's get this one. And we go back. YouTube, paste. Great. And so already, um, if you saw my last video, you're kind of aware of how this goes, but here's a good summary of it. Study found that several months after the initial 2 doses of mRNA vaccine, a significant shift in antibody subclass composition occurred with a substantial increase in non-inflammatory IgG4 antibodies, particularly after a booster dose or a breakthrough infection. Now, if you have no clue what that means, that is where this is going to come in to help you more. And I think this is, again, a great tool for pre-learning. Before you start reading more of this information, you're going to have a really good background understanding. What am I looking for? What's important to me? Which one of these characters, like IgG4 versus IgG1 versus B cells, antibodies, you're going to kind of already have a familiarity or an ability to pinpoint what is worth focusing on and what's not. So all right, we've got that. Now here, I'm going to tell it to create a podcast, but I could also go ahead and just start looking at these suggested questions and, familiarizing myself here. So what are the functional consequences of the observed shift? How does the timing of breakthrough infections influence the development of IgG4 antibodies in individuals vaccinated with SARS-CoV-2 mRNA vaccines? Repeated Back to the Future. Yeah, and this is a good question too. But anyway, so that's cool. You could start getting familiar with that. We could create a study guide, a briefing doc, a timeline. I don't think that'd be right for the situation. FAQ, probably not good for the situation. And here's the podcast. Again, this is what I think is really fun because I'm a big geek for podcasts if the source is right. And you can actually customize it, which is something I didn't show in the last video. Oops. You can customize it and tell it, yeah, exactly. So if I could do it again, I would probably tell it to focus less on the Wikipedia article, focus more on the Lancet because that is the highest authority out of all these things. Yeah, so that's great. I could tell it, probably the length of the podcast that I want. If I'm, maybe I want a 10-minute version, maybe I want a 30-minute version. I haven't played around with that too much, and I will soon because that's, I'm sure there are limitations there. But yeah, I'd click generate, it'd start rolling. But to save your time, because that typically takes about 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and look at the notebook that I've already created. And so here we are. I've already got the podcast. And again, Dr. Mobeen Syed, really interesting, but you might
So initial primary series, people had
you might see that it's kind of difficult to get a grasp on this just from him. I mean, the summary is a great part of the video, but if we were to jump somewhere a little more complicated, even with his use of visuals and highlighting, and he breaks it down really well. But let's say I don't have time for this, or let's say I'm still lost by some of the vocabulary. That is where I think the Notebook LM plays a vital role in gaining understanding quickly. So let me just skip to show you the beginning.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're really zeroing in on a listener question about vaccines, how they work and that whole thing about some people still getting sick even after they're vaccinated.
Yeah, it's definitely a question that's got the scientific community buzzing. And you've given us some really interesting leads to follow here, from medical studies.
All right, so cool. They're really pleasant voices to listen to, which I hate to say because they aren't real people, but we'll go ahead to 338. And this is a less than 2 minute segment that I think shows off the skill, the ability, why I'm so impressed with this. So again, with little medical background, it can be hard to wrap your head around these concepts. And here, the I think it has something to do with the way that it tokenizes words and the way that it understands them. It has a gift or a skill for being able to create analogies that I guess, in the way that they are stored, it is able to pinpoint the meaning of certain sentences or information and find analogies that mirror that same sort of reasoning style. Really impressive. I'd love to know more about what's going on under the hood there, but that's my working theory. All right, so we'll start. This is going to be a less than 2 minute segment, but I want to play it just to show you, as the listener, you might have no familiarity with this topic. Yet I think after you hear this, you might feel like you kind of know what's going on. So yeah, let's get into it.
And this is where things get really interesting, and it's highlighted in that science immunology study you sent.
Oh yeah, that's somewhere we really get into the weeds, right? Like the actual types of antibodies our bodies make.
Exactly. Because you see, not all antibodies are created equal. It's like, imagine different teams of detectives, each with their own specialty.
Okay, so like a police lineup, but for antibodies.
Exactly. And the study found that when people got repeated vaccinations with those mRNA vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, it actually caused a shift in the types of antibodies they were producing.
Okay, so what was shifting? What were they seeing?
Well, they saw this increase in a specific type of antibody called IgG4. And IgG4, it's a bit of an interesting character.
Oh, how so?
It's often involved in, well, dampening the immune response rather than ramping it up.
Wait, really? So instead of sounding the alarm, it's more like, hey now, everybody stay calm. Maybe we can talk this out with the virus.
That's a great way to put it. It's often associated with a more tolerant immune response, which, is important. Keeps things from going overboard.
Prevents collateral damage, like, the immune response itself causing harm because it's too strong.
Exactly. But here's where it gets a little tricky. Remember those NK cells, our immune system's hitmen? Well, it turns out IgG4, it's not great at alerting them.
Oh no. So even if those IgG4 antibodies are tagging the bad guys, the NK cells might not see them.
That's the concern. And they actually measured this in the lab. They found IgG4 was less effective at triggering those NK cell takedowns compared to other types of antibodies like IgG1, which is much more, shall we say, gung-ho about calling in the troops.
Wow. Okay, so that's a pretty big deal, right? That could explain why some people, even with multiple vaccinations, might still be more likely to get sick. Their bodies are making more of those peacekeeper antibodies and not as many of the ones that are going to send in the big guns.
Right. It's like having a security system that's almost too diplomatic,
Yeah.
Might try to negotiate with the intruder instead of just immediately calling for backup.
What?
All right, so there you have it. I hope that you found this, you see the potential that I see here, and I want to share that with you. I'm hoping to cultivate an audience of attorneys or whoever's interested in this. But yeah, I think that's really impressive. Again, I could go ahead and I could ask this to create multiple choice questions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the study guide or let's do the briefing doc. I think that sounds more like a legal situation. And I think I'm going to do another one, and I'm going to really drill in on something more law related. And I'm going to do some plaintiff's work and see what utility I might find there. All right, cool. So here's the briefing document. Dr. Mobeen Syed, titles the video, main idea, clinical significance. Key findings. Okay, now we're looking at the UK study. Increasing age dramatically increased risk. Interesting. Conclusion. All right, I like the briefing document feature. That's the first time I've checked that out. Really cool. And we go back to the notebook guide. We still have our podcast. There's one other thing I was going to show. Oh yeah, I'll say, give me the key takeaways. And this is the part that I think as an attorney, you're going to have to use the most is if it will show us the footnotes, right? So we want to make sure this information is legitimate, and here they are. So despite the increase in IgG4 antibodies, the researchers did not observe any evidence of altered disease severity after breakthrough infections. So let's go ahead and look at this. Where does this come from? All right, so this comes from the Science Immunology research. That would be this one. And is it gonna, let's see how easy it makes it to track that. Oh gosh, because I have two of these notebooks open now. All right, so this comes from the results section. All right, so that's easy to find. We know where it is, longitudinal monitoring. Let's go ahead, see if we can find it here. Longitudinal monitoring. There we go. And so this makes it very quick and seamless to verify the information we're getting out of it, and guarantee we're not, perpetuating a hallucination or falsified information. So yeah, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you find your own individual uses for it. If you have any creative ideas, please give them in the comments. I'd love to read those and maybe even make some videos about them. Thank you very much and have a good rest of your day.